What's up, everybody? Renfail here, and it is time for my Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Avowed, the most recent RPG from Obsidian Entertainment. I'm a huge fan of the Pillars of Eternity franchise. We have multiple playthroughs of both those games and lots of guides for those games, but now it's time for this one. If you've never watched one of my Ultimate Beginner's Guides before, they are of course geared towards new players, and they usually range from 30 to 45 minutes in length with a ton of different chapters that you can scroll through down below. So if you've already seen a chapter or you want to come back and have a refresher, you can skip through at your leisure. Daily streams happen at 6 a.m. on YouTube and Twitch, and I play a ton of different games, so hopefully we'll see you in one of those upcoming streams. Until then, everybody, let's dive into Avowed. Attribute points, otherwise known as statistics or stats, are the most important thing to pay attention to out of the gate because they work here a little differently than they do in many other RPGs and a little bit different even than the first two Pillars of Eternity games. So in the first two games in this series, whatever stats you picked at the character creation were the stats that you were stuck with the whole game. You could only modify through gear. But here, you actually get to pick your stats. Every time you level up, you get an attribute point that you could spend wherever you want to from level 1 to level 10. Now, after level 10, they come every 2 levels, so you'll only get an attribute point to spend every couple of levels. So you can mix and match however you want to here. You can also reset your points at any given time and respec your character, but it does cost coin, and the cost does go up the more that you choose to respec, so bear that in mind. The important thing to understand about attributes is that there is no difference in the stats between builds or classes like there are in many other RPGs. So as an example, in say Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, intelligence might be a stat that's really good for wizards and bards, but it's kind of useless for tanks as an example. Here, as an example, might, which gives you a damage bonus, covers every single build type and quote-unquote class type in the game. So it doesn't matter who you are, everybody benefits from might because it gives you a damage bonus. In addition, everybody benefits from dexterity because it increases your attack speed and your action speed. And then for ranged characters, everybody benefits from intellect, whether it's a marksman with a ranged bow, or if you are a spellcaster with spells and or a wand. Whether you're using guns or rifles, everybody benefits from... Sorry, I was thinking perception from maximum range is what I was talking about. I was looking at the wrong one. For perception is the maximum range. So the stats affect everybody equally, so there is no differentiating between the different stats and attributes for the different types of characters that you can create. So just remember, stats can work for every single type of build. They can be respected at any point in time. You get 1 point every level until 10, and then after that it's 1 point for every 2 levels. The accessibility options in Avowed are pretty vast, and honestly this is where you're going to find a lot of these options that apply to role players and the experience that they want out of the game. You can obviously start with subtitles, but this is also where you're going to find the ability to turn third person view on or off. You can also do it from the keyboard, I believe, with the U key, or if you're on the Xbox you just hold down the right thumbstick, but you can find it in here in the menu as well. And then going down through here, you'll find things like the camera shake, subtitles on and off, different toggles for crouch mode and sprint mode, and aim assist and everything else. But also you're going to want to go into things like the UI, because there are some options in here that are specifically related to role players. As an example, hide failed dialogue checks. I have this turned on in my gameplay because I don't want to see the dialogue options that I don't meet the requirements for. So an example of this would be if my the traditional way of doing this, the default method would be if like, let's say there was an option for a perception-based dialogue choice, but my perception isn't high enough. It would show me that my stat was too low, and that conversation option would be grayed out, letting me know that, hey, if you had the stat, you would be able to actually pass this dialogue check. I don't want to see those because from a roleplay perspective, I don't want to know that there are things that I'm missing. I would prefer to have those things naturally show up when I am playing a different playthrough with a different character. So you can go through here and turn a lot of this stuff on and off depending on how you want. Do you want your interaction icons on or off? Do you want loot shimmer on and off? Do you want to have, there's things in here like Damage numbers, I have mine turned off because I don't really want to see the damage numbers that I'm doing. Do you want your aiming reticle on or off? There's a lot of accessibility options in here, so take your time, go through at your leisure. There's a lot of different things you can use to enhance your gameplay or to minimize your UI screen clutter and make this as immersive as possible from a role-playing perspective, if that's something that you enjoy. Every time you level up in the game, you are going to be given a point that you can spend on abilities. And one of the really cool parts about Avowed is that you can choose to put these points wherever you want. You can mix and match as you desire between the fighter, the ranger, and the wizard trees. And each ability has a ranking system. So as you can see here with charge, it has rank 1, 2, and 3. Certain other abilities, as an example, Iron Fists, have 4 ranks. Like I said, different abilities have different ranks, so you could just go through here and look, and all of them have prerequisites. But the general idea here is that every single point you spend in the game, you can spend on an ability or to rank up an ability. And like the attribute system, the stat system, you can reset that at any point in time. It does cost coin, and it does get more expensive the more times you respec. So you can create any type of build that you want, whether it's a pure fighter who's sword and board, or if you're a fighter who does two-handed weapons, or do you want to dual wield 2 different short swords, 2 different daggers? Do you want to go spears, great hammers? What do you want to do? Do you want to go ranged? Well, there's a lot of ranged options here. There's a lot of weapon types. So you can go through here and say, well, I want to use a bow, and I want to use these abilities with a bow, or I want to use pistols, and I want to do different things with pistols, or I want to use a rifle. There are all these different options for weapons in the game and the abilities that you can use with those weapons as you level up. In this particular build, I've chosen a wizard, and the way the wizard works is the same way. You just have points that you can spend however you see fit to go through and unlock these abilities. And then if you decide you don't like something and you have the coin, you can just go back and respec and try something else out. But the general idea here is that you can choose to be a specific class if you want to be, or you can mix and match the abilities to create a hybrid of whatever you want. And there's no classes per se, just think of these as archetype trees that govern the abilities within, but you're free to spend your points wherever you see fit. Something to pay attention to in terms of your companions is that when you're back at camp, you can have conversations with all of your different companions. You have Yatsli, you have Kai, you have Marius, and over here is Giada. Each one of these characters will at some point in the game offer you a conversation option to permanently increase one or some of your stats depending on what you choose to do, and it is based on your personal choice. When you're having the conversation with these party members, it will be very obvious to you about whether or not you're being offered a single stat increase or multiple stat increase based on the conversation options. But each one of these will have a moment in time. The first one you're going to come across is Kai, because he's the first character that you get at the beginning of the game. So as you progress through the storyline and you build up your affinity with these characters and level up through the game and do their side quests and everything else, you will eventually be able to get those permanent stat boosts for your character. Continuing the conversation with companions, each companion has a skill tree that is similar to the skill trees that you have for your fighter, ranger, and wizard archetypes, but it's a little bit different here in that it's sort of refined. So each character has 4 different abilities that you get to choose from. Now their points come much more infrequently than your points do. So I am currently level 19, and each one of these characters we've only earned 4 points to spend on these characters. Now you can respec these at any point in time. Again, it costs a little bit of coin, as it can show you. But generally speaking, you can choose to have all of these abilities, or you can choose to focus on any of these abilities. And the cool thing about this system is that each one of these character companions has a series of abilities that are unique to them. And you can kind of think of these guys as archetypes. Kai is a fighter, Marius is your ranger character, Giada is your healer animancer character, and Yatsli is a straight up wizard. So all of their abilities kind of fall into those archetypes, but then they have some pretty big variety in those types. So as an example, I have Kai focused on doing this Leap of Daring, which is an AoE taunt, but you could instead choose to have him focus on a health revive, or health bonus, and a self revive. Or you could have him increase his damage reduction, or you could have him focus down on high stun and taunting a single target. So, for example, since I'm a wizard and I wanted him to be able to do lots of AoEs and pull the taunt away from me, I have him into Leap of Daring because that allows me to come in and do lots of AoE damage immediately following that because all the targets are on him. And I've got Marius spec to use Shadow Step. I have Giada as a healer, and I have Yahtzee with her a big old AoE explosion to help with damage. So, however you choose to respec your character or spec your companions out, you can respec this at will, go through this whenever you choose to, and have a lot of fun with this because it's really meant to complement whatever playstyle that you want with your character. Every single time you come to camp, you're going to be wanting to spend time at your workbench to upgrade items. Everything you have in the game can be upgraded in terms of your weapons or your armor. And what you're looking at here is if you look at normal items, they can be upgraded from common to fine to exceptional or superb. Specialty items, which are yellow items, can also be upgraded to the legendary tier. Now, the game is going to explain this to you, but I'm going to reiterate it here. It is extremely important that you upgrade your gear as you go through the game because the enemies that you face have essentially difficulty tiers associated with them, and the only way that you're able to do damage to them is to have your weapons and the skills associated with them, such as my grimoire or my wand. You have to have these weapons leveled up enough to be able to overcome the resistances that the mobs have built in. So if you have not taken the time to upgrade your weapons as you go through the game, you will not be able to damage the mobs regardless of your level. Similarly, if you have not taken the time to upgrade your armor, you will not be able to resist the damage from mobs of a certain tier because they will be able to just shred right through you. So it is absolutely important that you upgrade your gear as you go throughout the game. And this applies to the armor that you're wearing as well as the weapons that you're using. You can also go through and do upgrades with materials if you need to combine certain things together to create something else. You can also go through in the crafting. You'll notice here that you can combine things to make other things, or you can not only upgrade, but you can also downgrade as well. So if you find yourself with a surplus of a certain amount of things, but you want to create something else from it, you can go through and use the upgrade or the downgrade thing in terms of upgrading your gear and going from there. Now, similar to upgrading your gear, there is also an enchanting station. Now, this is a little bit different because this only applies to the yellow weapons that you find in the game. Now, there are lots of different types of weapons. In this case, I only have a wand because I don't care about arquebuses or pistols or swords or anything else. So when I get rare items, I tend to break them down for their mats. But what you're looking at here is every single time you come across one of these yellow items, these are what are called unique items. You can bring it here to your enchantment table and you can choose to add an enhancement. But what's really important is that these enhancements, and it even tells you over on the right hand side, only one enchantment can be chosen and this action cannot be undone. So this item started off with an ability called Flight in Autumn, which was a full combo attack that dealt low frost accumulation in nearby enemies. And I was able to choose between the Exodus in Winter or the Ill-Fated Return in order to create one of these choices. And I went with the Exodus in Winter. Now, similar to how the upgrade system uses the things that you find in the game world, the various materials. Those same materials are used here, as well as things you find from mobs. So if I go through here and look at these are the types of materials that are used for enchantments. Zarp tongues, vessel bones, ogre blood. These are all the types of things that are used in the enhancement of any sort of unique items that you come across in the game. Now, how do you find all the materials to upgrade your gear and enchant your gear? Well, you have to break everything down in the game. So things like this fine dagger, you're going to notice down below, it has a button, the X, where it says stash in camp or hold to break down. And when I hold it to break down, if you scroll down here, it's going to show you what I receive when I break it down. In this case, I'm going to receive a steel chunk from breaking down that fine dagger. So we're going to go and hold that, and we're going to break that down at this point in time. Now, the system will not let you accidentally break down one of your equipped weapons. So if you have something equipped, you can't even hit that X button because you already have it equipped. So you can't do anything with it to accidentally decon anything. So every time you get a weapon, excuse me, I went to the wrong screen there. Every time you get a weapon or a piece of armor that you're not going to need or that you don't think it's going to be useful to you, just go ahead and break that down. It is far more valuable to break it down for its components than it is to sell it for cash, because the vast majority of the time you're going to be spending time here in the camp upgrading your gear as opposed to buying things from the vendors. And once something has been broken down, it goes into this material list. And this is where you can see all the different materials that you have built up that can be used for upgrading and enchanting gear. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be given the option to choose a difficulty, from storytime difficulty to easy difficulty, normal difficulty, hard difficulty, or Path of the Damned. And it gives you a description of each one of these and what they are intended for. From the Path of the Damned, which is really hardcore, all the way back to something for people who have never played one of these games before and they just don't want to really deal with the combat. They just mostly want the story. Now, I have been playing on normal mode, and if you're playing on normal mode, you do have to pay attention to a little bit of strategy. But for the most part, the way I have seen it is that as long as you're facing the mobs that are on an even difficulty with you, so that they're same level as you as you're going up through the game, and it's normal gear and they're not using enhanced or anything like that, general encounters go very well. Boss encounters require a little bit of footwork and potion use, and manually using your companions. But for the most part, it's pretty forgiving. Whereas story time is for the people who just don't want to push buttons at all, and you really just want to do the exploration story of the game, which is what I highly recommend. And then if you want to do like the hardcore mode, go for Path of the Damned. But understand that this can be changed at any point in time, and there is no shame in doing story mode, which is how I play the vast majority of my games. And go through, and from here you can choose to just focus on what you think is going to be the most fun factor for you in your playthrough of Avowed. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload, or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Now, keying off of that discussion on the story mode versus normal mode, is understanding how the bounties and side quests and everything here in the journal works. So in this game, everything has a rating system, and this is carried over from the first two games. But essentially, if you see a quest like this Totem of Revelations and there's no icon next to it, you see how there's this sword with a skull icon here, and up here there's a skull with two icons? That represents difficulty. So if it doesn't have a skull, if it doesn't have a sword and skull next to it, it's essentially an even level quest. It's the same level as you or lower, which means it's something that should be relatively easy for you to do. These 1-star opportunities are the ones that are really, really difficult, and you will see things go from 1 to 3 stars as you go throughout the game. One skull, I say star, I mean skull. When you see a skull icon, it means that is something that is higher level than you and is probably challenging for you. Tool skulls, like our main quest, signifies that it's going to be quite challenging and you might die a few times on normal mode. And 3 skulls means it's way beyond your level range and it's going to quite possibly be something that you can't accomplish at your current level unless you do some sort of gimmicking or cheesing to get around it. And now if you're playing on anything other than story mode, if you're playing, I would argue that story and easy mode, you can get away with this. But if you're on normal mode or beyond, you are going to need to be spending a lot of your time doing these 1 skull quests to get your levels up to be able to handle the main quests to keep them within your level range. This is basically the same as many other RPG systems where you need to go back and do side quests to keep your main level up for the main storyline. You're going to get a lot of side quests. You're going to get a lot of bounties. They're going to be broken down into regions. So example, Shatterscarp, Emerald Stair. You're also going to find treasure maps that you can do. And there's also companion quests that you'll get as well. So I recommend that, especially if you're playing on normal difficulty or below or above, you're going to want to clear every single bounty and every single side quest and every single companion quest, every single treasure quest to get the most out of the XP, because this is not a game where you can go grind mobs. Once you've killed the mobs in a region, they are completely done. They do not respawn, so you only have 1 chance to earn XP in this game, so bear that in mind. Now, if you notice down on the bottom right of my screen, I've got hit point potions, health potions, and essence potions, which are represented by the red bar and the purple bar respectively. It's my mana pool is the purple bar, your health pool is the red bar. Now, if you're out in the wild and you use a potion, let's go ahead and step out here really quick and show you what I'm talking about. If we step out into the wild and we use a potion, it's going to deplete the potions, right? So I have 19 health potions and 17 essence potions. Potions, I like to say that word funny. So if I cast a spell like that, it drains essence, as you just saw. That spell goes on for a while. Okay. Now, if I use a potion, it refills the bar with the potion. But you can also, let's cast some more spells here. Okay. And then we're going to go back and we're going to settle into the camp here. Okay. Now, go back to the Waystone. We're going to set up camp. Every time you come back to camp, you notice it just refilled the bar. Every single time you come back to camp, it refills your hit points and your essence bars to full. So if you ever find yourself in doubt or low on potions and you want to get a quick recap, all you do is got to hit one of those artist stones if you're close to them, or you can go into your map here and you can look for the camp icon and you can click on that and go back to your chosen camp anywhere you want to in the game. And that's a quick way to get your potions up to full whenever you need, or your hit point and essence bars to full without burning potions. As a general rule, you're going to want to be a loot goblin in this game because everything can be broken down for use in upgrading your weapons and your armor or your unique items, but also because almost everything can be consumed in terms of the food items, and they have different things like renewing your health or your essence. Some things give you bonuses like maximum essence. You'll go through here. The ones that have buffs next to them have these little 3 yellow icons, 3 little bars that cures poison and bleed accumulation, gives you +2 perception and 10% maximum essence. That gives you 20% maximum stamina. This gives you con and damage reduction. So you can go through here and choose any of these at your leisure. But the big thing is paying attention to everything and looting everything in the game. However, there are 3 things in particular you always want to buy when you're back in town. And these are the only things I recommend that you buy from merchants ever. And that's lockpicks, health potions, and essence potions, because these are the hardest to find in the whole game. I don't spend my money on anything else in this game. I don't buy gear because I find gear in the wild. The exception was a really cool wand that I bought, and then the very next day I ended up deconstructing it for the materials to use in a different wand. But as a general rule, every single time you go to town, you want to buy as many lockpicks as you can find, buy as many health potions as you can find, and buy as many essence potions as you can find. They're relatively inexpensive, but they are the hardest things to come across. And you're going to find a lot of chests and doors in the game world that require in between 1 and 5 lockpicks to unlock. And anybody can use lockpicks, but you have to have them in your inventory. And because some of the chests can take like 5 lockpicks, you're going to want to carry as many lockpicks as you can at any given time. One of the interesting things about Avowed is that any character can use any weapon in the game. So you're not limited by class. So you can use bows, daggers, grimoires, you can use shields, wands, swords, the arquebus, which is a rifle musket. You can use hammers, there's spears, there's all these different types of weapons, and you're not limited by any sort of class restrictions or stat restrictions or anything else. So you can literally mix and match however you want. In addition, if you go in here into your character sheet and you're in your inventory, you'll notice that if you go down to like the bow, down at the bottom it says wield two-handed. But then if you go to, say, a wand, if I'm going to unequip these really quick, and we're going to look here at the wand, and it gives me the option. If you look at the bottom, I can wield it in my offhand or main hand. Many of the weapons in the game, such as pistols, daggers, swords, wands, things of that nature that can be wielded with one hand, those can be dual wielded in any combination that you want. Other items, such as a shield or a grimoire, are automatically going to go into your offhand, and it will show you on the bottom right there where it's going to be slotted. Other things like the bow are two-handed. So if I'm going to equip the grimoire, it's automatically going to go in my offhand, but then I can put any one-handed weapon I want to go along with that grimoire. So if I want to be a grimoire in one hand and a pistol in the other, or a dagger in the other, or a sword in the other, I totally can. Or if I want to use a shield in my offhand and also use a wand or a pistol, I can do that. Do I want to dual wield wands? I can do that. Do I want to dual wield pistols? I can do that. Do you want to use a bow? Do you want to use a musket? There are no limitations in the combination and types of weapons you can use, respective of whether or not they are one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, or if they are specifically designated as an offhand slot like a grimoire or a shield. For those of you who remember the real-time with pause options from the first two games, the first two Pillars of Eternity games were created as real-time with pause CRPGs and then added turn-based gameplay over time. Avowed also features a real-time with pause system. Anytime you bring up the radial menu to select the abilities for your companions or yourself, this essentially pauses the game. Now you can still move this around, which allows you to easily target characters and monsters in the field to be able to specifically focus fire on something if you need to. But this is essentially a real-time with pause system. And when you're in this window, your top two abilities here on the left are going to be related to one companion, and then the top right abilities are related to another companion, and the abilities down at the bottom are yours. Basically, you have one godlike ability over here. You have your consumables, you have your throwables, and then you have your, if you're wielding a grimoire like me, you can get in here and get into your grimoire options as well. But once you're out of that menu, you are running around and you're in real time again. But once you need to, you can just pause this at any point in time, in combat, out of combat, it doesn't matter. This allows you to quickly pause the game and choose some strategic options to help you in any sort of combat scenarios that you're focused on. One of the interesting things about Avowed is that it features a parkour system. And the parkour system allows you to do things like this and jump up and on top of things and to take advantage of the verticality of the zones in many different ways. Now, not everything can be jumped upon, but many things can, and it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out where you're going to be able to jump and explore. The game has a lot of hidden puzzles and treasure chests that you'll find in various places around the game world, but you do have to go off the beaten path and pay attention to the verticality of the zones to get there. Like, there's definitely a ledge up there. Oh, and here's something that I want to point out while we're dealing with this. Hear that? It's probably, I've got the volume turned down a little bit. There's a Let me turn this up. You'll be able to hear this bit. There's like a tinkling sound in the background. That's this right here, the lockbox. When you hear these, you know that there's something around like a chest or a backpack or a lockbox which has something in it that you're going to want to look for. And these can be hidden not just below, but also up high as well. So you really want to focus on exploring every nook and cranny of these zones to make sure that you get the maximum amount of consumables as well as crafting materials from these areas. And again, it's not just about looking down low, it's also about thinking about where you can go up high and using your parkour to jump up on top of ledges and balconies and find all the different things that you might have otherwise missed if you were only paying attention to the ground level. And there you have it, everybody. That is my ultimate beginner's guide to Avowed, the latest RPG from Obsidian Entertainment. We're going to be continuing to play this game in the coming days, and of course there's a lot of other guides in the playlist, so don't forget to check that out down below. And if you've got additional things you'd like to see in upcoming guides, don't forget to drop those down in the comments and let me know. Otherwise, I'll see everybody in tomorrow's stream every single day on YouTube and Twitch around 6 a.m. Central. Stay safe out there, everybody. Happy gaming.